الشارع
شو دفع ايفا يلد
على الشارع بقول لك على الشارع
وين ولد؟
فيش ولد والله ما في ولد
لا فيش ولد
على الشارع
غيني بتقولها ين فيش ولد
على الشارع انت تولد بيبي بيبي تولد بيبي تولد بيبي طلع على الشارع طلع برا
So that I was there. I was literally in the building next door, and all we heard was the screaming. So they sent us this video afterward. But what the IDF are saying is "When is walad," which is "Where's the boy?" And they kept saying "Where's the boy?" And the mom keeps responding saying, "There is no boy. There is no boy. Please, he's just a baby. Please, there's no boy. Just leave, leave."
The 9-year-old boy.
Yeah, and the only reason they took him is because this kid was literally playing outside in his front yard. And when the IDF stormed, when you played that other video where they were walking down the road, they saw him, and then he runs back inside, and they're like, "All right, let's just grab this one." And this is the thing they do. This is what they do. This is their tactic. They'll find a young boy, they'll grab him. It could be for literally no reason, beat the shit out of him, release him the next day, kind of as like a statement to all of the other young men. Like, see how we beat the hell out of this dude? We'll do the same to any of y'all.
Yeah.
And that really, and this is literally my first 2 hours, I guess, while I was there. I'm seeing all of this and I'm hearing all of this.
That in every single context is what you would call terrorism.
Yeah.
That is the definition of terrorism. You can't label that any other way besides terrorism. And sadism, terrorism. It's sadistic terrorism is what that is. There's another one here, or no, that's the same one. So that 9-year-old boy, they wound up getting, and they wound up beating him within an inch of his life and dumping him on the side of a road.
Yeah, and that's kind of just what they do. Actually, when I was visiting another thing I noticed while I was in my family's town is while I was walking down the streets, all I would see are tons of gas bomb. Here, actually, I have a photo of one. Let me just like toss it in here. But there would just be tons of cartridges of these like smoke grenades that they would toss. And they would do, and especially, so there's a little elementary school. It's called Burin Elementary School. That's actually my grandparents went to that elementary school. And the settlers, I'll send you this video and you can watch it later. But the settlers actually came down and stormed the school. And the IDF will give settlers ammo, and they'll give them smoke grenades, and they'll give them whatever else. And they just started chucking it into this elementary school, and these kids start running out, barely able
I heard
to
about
breathe.
that.
Yeah, and they'll this is just commonplace for them. So my whole family's been in Burin for literally as far back as we know, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, both sides of my family. Actually, my mom and dad's side, if you go back just a couple generations, I think their grandparents or cousins or something. So it's a very, very small population. And my grandparents on both sides, they are from Burin, but they spent a lot of their childhood in Haifa. And my great grandparents on my mom's side were very successful textile worker. He owned a textile mill. Just selling, cotton and whatever else. And they had apartment complexes in Haifa, and I'll send you the photos. That my grandpa, his apartment complex is still in Haifa to this day. And actually, my mom sent me a photo of it recently, and it's obviously not his anymore. And it has all Jewish residents. And it was his apartment. And he saved up. He was telling me his dad saved up so much money. And this was in 1947, so just a year before the war, the 1948 war. And obviously, when Israel took control of Haifa, that's when they all moved back into Burin because they wanted to escape, and everything was taken. And now this building is still up, and it's not ours anymore. And I think that's what really bothers me, to be like that. I see these photos of people living in my grandfather's apartment complex that's still standing, which is insane to me. And they're just having, because my mom sent me a photo and it was them like having tea on the balcony and stuff. And I'm like, you guys, that's literally not even your complex. That really irked me. And
Yeah, I bet that does.
yeah, it bothers you a lot. And then seeing all like my parents, they own land in the West Bank. That land's become state land, so they no longer own that land. Typically, what the IDF will do, or what the Israeli government will do, is they'll give Palestinians, sometimes if there is a plot of land that Israel wants, they might offer to buy it from a Palestinian. And I will tell you right now, no Palestinian will sell his land to Israel. No, they would rather die. And there's actually a lot of stories you'll hear about Palestinians being offered millions and millions of dollars for like the most crummy
Hmm.
spot of land that they won't sell. And that's exactly what happened to my family. They were offered, I think, 5 million for a plot of land next to Boudin. It's on the other mountainside. They refused, and it became state-owned land. So they can't. So basically, they lost the land no matter what. They'll initially
Yeah.
block it off. And what Israel does, and they've been doing so much of this, and actually a new law just passed to basically like amplify this law. And it's I don't know if you've heard, but if Israel wants a plot of land, they'll either say that they need to block it off because there is violence going on, or they'll say that they have a strong indication there are Roman artifacts under that land.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, this is a big.
They're weaponizing archaeology.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
whenever they have a reason to believe there's archaeological evidence of Roman ruins, then they can take that land. This is land in the West Bank, even if it's in an area, because the West Bank is split up into area A, B, and C, does not matter. If they believe that there is a Roman ruin underneath a spot of Palestinian land, they can claim it under the I think it's called the Artifacts law, the Artifacts land law, as something
Hmm.
to that word, and they'll be able to claim it, and they'll just say. So what they'll started doing is in Boudin, there's a masjid, there's a mosque in my family's village, literally in the center of the damn village, like in the center of this entire village. And there's now being a push, and it's been kind of going back and forth in the government for a few years because they believe there's Roman artifacts underneath the mosque. How the hell do they know that there is? They don't. So what they'll do is
They don't. So they're like, what are they reading? Some like ancient document saying, "Hey, here on this old map, it says that there
no.
X marks the spot. It's right underneath the fucking
They'll just
mosque."
bullshit it. They do this
Jesus.
so much. They'll just say that there's Roman ruins. They'll claim the land. There won't be Roman ruins, and then you wake up one day and all of a sudden they have a new settlement construction going on where they said they had Roman ruins. So this has been the new thing, like settler violence. So Israel benefits, and people need to understand this. The Israeli government benefits off of settler violence. I've been working with Yishdan, it's a NGO in the West Bank, and settler violence is helpful for the state of Israel because the settlers will scare Palestinians off from their land that Israel then declares state-owned land, and then Israel continues to push Palestinians away. So I don't even call them settlers at this point. They're more so like paramilitary groups. Honestly, they all have M16s.
They are. No, that's exactly what they are. They're paramilitary communities.
Yeah, exactly. They all have M16s. They get to do whatever they want. And basically, instead of Israel having to take this land on their own by force, well, they'll just have these ultra-religious extremists go do it for them.
Yeah, they're useful. They're useful idiots. They're useful tools. Like, because that way the Israeli government will not have culpability because technically it's not the IDF.
Exactly.
It's just they're crazy settlers. We can't control what they're doing.
Between that and the stupid Roman artifacts law, and they changed the law recently to that indicates that anything considered an artifact previously had to be more than 400 years old. Now they change it so that way it has to be more than 400 years old, or the prime minister has to call it an artifact. So anything. So every single year they just continue to take more Palestinian land, and they're strategic with how they do it. So they've taken all the mountaintops. They've put us all in the valley. And once they've taken the mountaintops and built their settlements, they'll start trying to connect. They'll start trying to connect roads between different mountaintops, and just basically toss us into ghettos, which is exactly what they're doing. So like decades ago, just 20 years ago, settlements in like my family's village is next to Nablus, which is deep in the West Bank. Like that's in the center of the West Bank.
My memories of Nablus, beautiful, beautiful area. I think of Nablus. What do you think of? What do you think of Nablus? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
I just imagine like a busy city with knafa. Have you tried knafa before? You had to have tried knafa if you were in the.
I was just about to say, when I think of Nablus, I think of knafa and ice cream.
Yeah.
Nablus ice cream. So they have the best goat's milk, creamiest ice cream you ever tasted in your entire life. And the knafa, the first time I saw knafa, I was like, it was the most bizarre thing I ever saw. It's like stringy, orange, like bright orange. And I tried. I'm like, oh my god, what is this? It's made out of goats curds, right?
Yeah, it's like sweet cheese and a lot of just like sugar, like syrup. It's like syrup. Yeah. So that's.
Anyway, sorry for the sidebar. I had to say something about the ice cream in Nablus. No, go ahead. Continue.
No, it's knafa is amazing, and that's exactly what I think of when I think of Nablus too. And my family's village is like 25 minutes south of Nablus, so Nablus is like the big city. They'll start connecting the settlements, which is what they're doing now, and they basically are just tossing these Palestinians into ghettos and enclaves. And you'll hear. Have you heard? Danielle Weiss? Have you heard that name before? She's the psycho, ultra religious old lady.
I have it.
You probably know her face.
I have it right here.
Oh, you do?
I have it right here on the list of questions I was going to ask you. Yeah, Danielle Weiss.
You can ask the question first, then. I don't know.
All right. Let's pretend we didn't have this conversation real quick. Hey, Wally, tell me about Daniela Weiss. That lovely. Let's use Greg's. Oh, I loved it when Greg used this. The Wicked Witch of the West Bank is what we call her.
It's the best way to put her. Honestly, this lady is crazy. This reaches the level of psychocism that I just can't describe. So obviously, crazy Zionist. When we were talking about how the Zionist movement, it gets so extreme to where they're chanting from the river to the river, from the Nile to the Euphrates, which is basically the entire Middle East. She is one of those, from the river to the river, and she said this a lot publicly in a lot of her videos.
Yeah, I heard it. I heard that.
And it's Yitzhar, the settlement next to my family's village. They have that exact belief system. She has the same ideology as the rabbis at Yitzhar, and that's what's scary is that if you're a settler in the West Bank, you're not a normal Israeli. The majority of the settlers in the West Bank are poor. They live in the settlements because the state of Israel is giving them tax write-offs to live in these settlements. So it's cheaper. I think they get like 35% tax reduction or something. On top of that, if you are an Israeli in the West Bank, then you're an ultra-Zionist and you think you're a pioneer. So you're living in the West Bank and you're most likely low-income, religious fanatic that thinks you're a pioneer. So you're not getting maybe a kind Israeli from Tel Aviv living next to Palestinians. It's like you're honestly putting the KKK next to like an African-American community.
I was just about to say that it was one of the things I was going to ask you is I want to dive into the types of people that are the settlers. These are not normal people. Like Israel specifically reaches out to the most deranged, psychopathic people who, if they were on any normal day in the United States, they would probably be admitted into, a psych ward or something. They're not normal people. They are fanatical, and Israel specifically wants those types in and around the West Bank. It's part of their strategy. It's crazy when you think about it that they actually source and procure the most deranged, criminal-like people to live in these settlements. It's like there's psychological engineering along with social engineering that's going along with the whole West Bank settler project. So yeah, sorry, go.
No, that's exactly. They just basically want to torture the hell out of these people until they leave. That's what the settlers' points are. And the deeper you go into the West Bank, if there's a settlement that's deep in the West Bank, then that's the most. That's like a radical settlement. They're not. If it's near Hebron or Jerusalem, maybe they might not be as crazy to where they're just killing people left and right. But if you're a settlement deep in the West Bank, then you're definitely an ultra-religious extremist. and they don't like anybody that's not a Zionist Jew. So, and I have to, it's insane because some of the rhetoric that you hear is insane, and this is an extremist group, just like there are extremist Christians and extremist Muslims, there are extremist Jewish people, and these Jewish people, they preach for the slaughter of Gentiles, and they talk about how Gentiles, and they say this to us,
slaughter or enslavement,
exactly.
enslavement. If they're not going to slaughter them, they're going to be slaves.
Yeah, and they believe that each Gentile will have 2,800 slaves, or sorry, each Jewish person will have 2,800 Gentile slaves. And these are the people that are living next to my family's village. So I can't, the amount of sight, it's like just, it's so crazy trying to wrap your head around that every single day you wake up and you see people on the top of a mountaintop with M16s and your mom's behind you and you just want to, you might want to go shopping with your mom and just take her to the other side of the village, and you're worried about these crazy psychos that could just shoot you because they look at you like you're wild game. They don't view Palestinians as humans, and because they don't view them as human, they don't feel bad when they kill them. And
they have no fear of any repercussions. Like in the United States, obviously, what would happen if you were out there sniping kids? Well, you're going to prison, or you're getting the death penalty. There's no fear of that. No. There's no fear of a SWAT team showing up. Oh, we got a sniper. He's shooting people. Like that's why. This has been such a tightly kept secret that Israel has made damn sure that Americans are not exposed to, because the simple experience and picture of that for Americans is so foreign. Like even living in the worst neighborhood in Chicago is not as terrifying as that, because at least in Chicago, if I were living in the worst, most gang-ridden area of Chicago, I could at least have a shotgun in my house to protect me if some gang member tried to break into my house. Palestinians have no recourse. There's literally nothing they can do besides try to run or go deeper into Palestinian West Bank, and like I said, Palestinians don't have a Second Amendment. They don't have any of those options. So it's as a father, I'm just trying to think of as a father, like imagine being a parent, having kids in your house, knowing that at any moment a violent gang has full carte blanche permission to just come in your house and murder your kids and your family and do whatever they want. It's terrifying. And because it's so terrifying, they have made sure that with the shit that you're talking about does not get out there, does not reach any public ears amongst Americans, at least Americans.
Yeah, and you can't, and again, you can't call the police, you can't call on anybody, because they probably are the police. They are the IDF.
Yeah.
They are the IDF. They're one and the same.
The police will block the road so they can get away with it and then probably cover their escape.
There's so many photos of like the IDF giving ammo to the settlers while they're shooting and hunting us. Honestly, they're just basically hunting us at this point. It's crazy, and what's more crazy is that the people that are in charge of Israel right now are these people. The people that are in charge of Israel, like Ben-Gvir, Smotrich. Smotrich called for the elimination. He said that Hawara, it's the town next to Burin, the town of Hawara must be erased off of the map. Smotrich said this. And it's literally it's literally the town right next to my family's village, and so it's the radicals are the ones that have the power, so they're making the laws. Smotrich, or I can't remember which prime minister, he was at a conference and they had a map of Greater Israel. It wasn't from the river to the river though. It was just like Israel and then Jordan under one large map. This was last year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's the one that I saw when I was in Jerusalem. Back when I was hanging out with Zionists in Jerusalem. That's the one that they showed me, and I was like, "What's that?" And they kind of told me, and it's kind of like that little, it's like a little inside joke kind of thing. It's a little clicky joke where it's like, "Hey, check out this map. This is what we really want." And I was like, as a young kid, I'm like,
"Oh, they said that." So you've like heard them talk about it.
No, this is me in Jerusalem amongst Zionists, them just talking about this. See, you have to understand, I had both feet in two worlds. I would be hanging out with the Palestinians by day, hanging out partying with the Israelis by night, hanging out with the Zionists. I was a chameleon. I was in both worlds, and they saw me as a completely like a neutral, if not pro-Israel party. So they were comfortable talking to me as if I was one of them.
So how many of them like thought that like this greater Israel were you hanging out with like radical Zionists too, or are these like randos in like college in Tel Aviv or something that are talking about this greater Israel? Like how mainstream is that?
These are a combination of Israeli Zionist and American Zionist Jews that I was hanging around with. Now what was interesting, here's what's interesting about it, is the American Jews who were on the flight with me from I think it was it DC, or I think it was DC, Washington DC to Tel Aviv, to Ben Gurion, to Jerusalem. What's interesting is a lot of the Jews, American Jews who were with me, they went there they had kind of a very similar journey in the sense, ideological journey, in the sense that they were Zionists going there, and then they got there, and then they kind of saw how the racism that's like Jim Crow era racism. Like it's like very open, very normal in Israeli society. I think that was a huge culture shock for a lot of these Zionist Jews. And you saw them slowly distancing themselves away from Zionism. Even for example, the American Jews would not hang around Israelis. They at first they're like all excited, just like I was. Oh yeah, we're going to Israel. It's like that because they read the brochure. I call it brochure Zionism. It's like it's this Disneyland. Like, oh wow, Israel's a safe place for
Where the
Jews.
hell did you come up with that? I was not expecting that to come out of your mouth.
I know I didn't throw you off. It's like it says Disney. We're going to Disneyland, all right? This is the Disneyland for Jews. That's what Israel was. This is the Disneyland for Jews where everybody's happy. Oh golly. And then we get there. And then we suddenly, it's like, oh my God, this is Jim Crow South racism going on. And then you saw the American Jews were like, even they were repulsed by it. And you saw them have the same type of transition that I did, except they were doing it from they were coming from a Jewish Zionist background. I came from a Christian Zionist background.
So give me an example, if you're walking in Israel, when you talk about racism, they'll just straight up say, "Oh, like that, they're all stupid, damn Arabs," like shit like that. The sort of rhetoric, mainstream.
I got an example that I always use. So, mind you, I'm 18 years old and I am horny as shit, and I'm trying to get myself an Israeli girlfriend. So, at the Hebrew University campus, you had Israeli security guards. There's this one chick who was cute, and she was be working the night shift. So I'd be on the campus, going to my dormitory, leaving the campus, and she would be at the front entrance at her desk. And, I started flirting with her, right? And I sat down and, just talking to her and getting to know her and hopefully get a girlfriend out of it, And it was all fine and dandy and, it was cool. We were vibing, but one of my Palestinian friends, one of the students, because by the way, if you know one Palestinian at Hebrew University, you know all of them. So I just became known amongst all the Palestinians at Hebrew University because I was friends with a certain group of them, and therefore I would meet their friends, and you would just remember their faces. So I knew a lot of the Palestinians on the campus, and I saw one of them walk past, and I'm like, "Hey, what's going on, bro?" And I got up and we shook hands and hugged each other. I'm like, "Hey, I'll see you later. Maybe later on tonight we'll hang out." Right?
Yeah.
I'm doing this in front of the security guard. So I sat back down with her, and after he left, she goes, "You know that guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's one of my buddies." And she's like, "But he's Arab." And I'm like, "Yeah, he's Arab. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of them here in the Middle East, by the way. The fuck are you talking about?" And she's like, but their Arabs are bad." And I'm like, they're bad. What do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? Like, are you Gary? You fucking with me or something? What's going on? And she's like, "No, you shouldn't talk to Arabs. Stay away from them." I'm like, wait, you're being dead serious right now, right? Like, you're not pulling my chain. What the fuck? What are you talking? Like, and I was just in shock because look, like it was so, she wasn't joking around. It was very just normal for her to say. And I'm like, I definitely wasn't raised that way. My parents they'd slap the shit out of me if I'd said something racist, you know? So like,
And it's 20% of Israel is like 20% of Israel is Palestinian, like Palestinian and
right.
Israelis. That's such a big percentage of the population that they're all racist towards.
Exactly. And I'm just like, we're in the Middle East, and she's saying, oh, they're Arab, they're bad, stay away from them. I'm like, you're in the fucking Middle East. What are you talking about? This is their land. So to me, it was a huge culture shock because I'm like, okay, we got a problem, girl. Like, I don't know how your parents raised you, but you're just acting crazy. And and here's the thing. You could tell, like, here's the thing that people don't talk about when we talk about Israelis, okay? And this became very obvious to me. Israelis have a huge spectrum of psychological mental health issues, okay? They are top in the world for mental health issues. And I can understand why. I see all the mechanisms that create that type of mental health crisis in Israel, because they're raised in this toxic ideology that is not concurrent, or it doesn't mesh with the century that we're in right now. Like, this girl was literally living in what we would consider the Jim Crow South. The Jim Crow South, white people would talk about black people just like she was talking about Arabs, without any shame, without any type of embarrassment, with thinking that it was completely normal. And I'm like, what, you think that just because I'm light-skinned, I'm a white person like you, that you can start talking about people of color like that to me? Like, you're talking about my friends here. Like, they're awesome people. So, but then it's like, well, if she was brainwashed from a child up, I guess it makes sense for her to say that. But that's even worse. That's even more terrifying, because
They don't think it's bad. They don't feel bad about it.
Right. And I'm like, dude, if she knew my friends, she would be hanging out with them every freaking day. They're awesome.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, anyways, that's an example. Just one example that I constantly go back to, you know, and I did not hook up with her, in case you were wondering.
When I was on my trip, because I went, I mean, I have an American passport, and I went into Jerusalem afterward, and I like went to to Jerusalem, and then I was like hanging out. I spent the weekend, a weekend there one night, and I got scared to tell, like, because I mean, honestly, I can pass pretty easily as a white dude, or maybe some like sort of mixed something, but nobody.
Yeah, no, you literally look like my brother, my younger brother.
Yeah, so I look like I can definitely pass, especially like the way I dress and stuff. I don't really look like I'm not. I mean, I'm whiter than a lot of white people. So a lot of people didn't expect. Well, I mean, so a lot of people didn't know I was Arab, and I wouldn't tell anybody. And I hated that. I remember this actually. I remember this so vividly. When I was going into so when I went to visit my family, I went through the Jordan-Israel border, and then from there, I had to take a taxi through Israel into the West Bank. And you have to go through two taxi drivers. You take an Israeli taxi driver who meets you like near the West Bank, and then a Palestinian taxi driver will take you
I did it 1,000 times. I did do it a thousand times. I did do that shit.
So my Israeli taxi driver was an idiot, and he drops me off at the like just completely like in the middle of nowhere, literally in the middle of nowhere. I had no idea where the hell I was, and this is I wasn't in the West Bank, and I wasn't also in like a busy area. I was literally in the middle of a desert, and all I see is like this like these military buildings, and my heart was like beating, and there was nothing. It was literally the guy just dropped me off on the side of a corner, and he was telling me that the Palestinian taxi driver is going to be here. Waited an hour, nobody came. So I'm like, well, fuck it, I have to go somewhere. So I go to this like this military building. And I was so stupid. And this lady,
oh God, you went into the hornet's nest, bro. That's some balls
like,
right there, dog.
It was like a checkpoint place, and I was about to die of dehydration. This is like there was nowhere. There was like 5 miles on each side, just nothing. So except for this building. So I go in, and thank God I was wearing like some Nike. I looked so damn American. Like I just looked so. There's no way somebody's gonna look at me and be like, "This dude's an Arab." Like I was wearing like short, like whatever. So I go to these and it's two IDF girls, and they're holding these big ass, and I'll send you the photos too, because while I was sitting down, I took photos of them, and they look at me, and I immediately pretend I don't speak Arabic, and I'm like, sorry, do you speak English, like, and whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, yeah.
You pulled a lost
Oh,
American look on it.
100%.
That's awesome.
Oh, thank God it worked. And they were so sweet to me. And that's the insane part. They were so sweet to me. And they gave me they let me charge my iPhone. They told me which bus to take.
Yeah.
And they were smiling, and they gave me hugs before I left. And they started making fun of Arabs with me, like they were just talking shit about them. And I'm gonna be honest, like I felt like shit, but at the same time, they literally are carrying an M16 right in front of me. I'm not gonna tell them I'm Arab. This is not the time to like care about that. You know what I mean? Felt shitty,
Yeah.
but I did what I had to do. It was fine. And then when I went into Jerusalem after that, so I stayed with my family, and then I went into Jerusalem. I went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, all of that, and I started hanging out with some people I went to. So I grew up Muslim, but honestly, I'm like really not religious much. I drink, I do whatever. So I went to a bar in Jerusalem, and I was just like having a few drinks, and of course, like I look really American. I was dressed really American, so these like really lax, non-religious Israelis just like come up to me, and I'm hanging out with people all night. And I just tell them I'm American and stuff. And it's so, just like you were saying, it's so normal in their rhetoric to talk about to talk about Arabs in the most racist way, like the most random shit. If somebody treated you badly, they'd be like, "Oh, he was probably an Arab." Well, it's like anything they'll blame it on Arabs, and they'll talk about it's so insane, and they'll talk about like dirty Arabs and how Arabs can't get their shit together and how they're no good for the planet. Why, specifically the Palestinians, they'll talk about how. One, they'll say that the Palestinians in Gaza are worse than the Palestinians in the West Bank. They'll be like, oh, at least the Palestinians in the West Bank, like, they're human. The ones in Gaza, those are animals. Like, you can't,
Yeah.
They'll say shit like that. A big one that they'll say is, and I'll get this, sometimes Israelis will comment on my stuff and say this. They're like, you guys could have made the West Bank look like Dubai. You could have made Gaza look like Dubai. And what good do Palestinians bring to the planet? Like, we're Jews, we have Nobel Prizes. They say this. They'll tell me this.
That type of rhetoric is normal amongst white liberals in the United States, and I constantly hear it. And they don't realize that that's the same type of rhetoric that's used by racists to explain why black neighborhoods are in such poverty. They say, look what black people have done to the neighborhood. It's like, no, it's like that because of all the systematic things you guys put in place to keep black neighborhoods in poverty. It's the system that creates that. It's a common argument. What you just said is such a common argument that I hear spoken even by liberals, by quote unquote liberals in the United States. They'll say like, well, why haven't the Palestinians made anything for themselves? Like, oh, I don't know. Maybe it's because Israel doesn't give them permits to do shit.
No, you can't,
because Israel restricts. Yeah, Israel doesn't allow them to import so many. There's the list of shit that Palestinians are not allowed to import into their economy or export out of their economy is freaking huge. And so, yeah, anyways.
No, you're right on the money. There's a dude, his name is Bashar Masri. There's a town, actually, it's called Rawabi. It's this Palestinian billionaire. He got money from Qatar, and they invested, I think, $2 billion. It's a town in the West Bank. It's called Rawabi. It's in Area A. The town's beautiful, and they're basically Bashar Masri, this Palestinian billionaire. He hopes that it's the capital of a new Palestine. That's what he started building it back in 2014 or something. And the town's beautiful now. It's in Area A. It's stunning, and they're basically trying to make it like a huge hub for investors. It's really interesting. It took him 5 years for the town. It's in Area A, and Area A is all Palestinian controlled. They have a really nice Instagram and everything too. It's beautiful. But the water supply into the town was coming from Area C. So for 5 years, everything was built, and they couldn't actually have people live in the town because Netanyahu wouldn't let them have access to the water supply to the town. And it took 5 years until eventually they allowed them to have water supply on a yearly permit. So every year they have to renew this permit. So that's just one example. Like, how the hell, if they can't even, they spent $2 billion on this beautiful town, and they can't even they have to spend 5 years just to get damn water access. How the hell are they supposed to build anything? You know?
Exactly, exactly. And I'm so glad you brought that up, bro. Because it is such a common bullshit talking point that is used, where like you said, they'll say, well, why haven't Palestinian, like, look at the Palestinian territories, they're like ghettos. It's like, this is why that is. It's not because of, in fact, I make the counter argument, it's a miracle that Palestinians are able to live any type of normal life given the deck of hands they've been given. Like, if 1% of the shit that Palestinians go through as a result of the Israeli government were to happen to Americans, we would all be eating each other alive. It would be anarchy in the streets. We would be robbing each other. We would be stealing each other's food. So whenever I hear an American especially judge Palestinians by the situation they're in, acting like it's their fault, I'm like, dude, if we took your Walmart away, you'd shoot yourself. You'd fucking shoot yourself in the head because you think the world ended. Or you shut a Starbucks down. Oh, you're fucking crying you're sending tweets about how shitty life is because your Starbucks got shut down. Like, that's, yeah.
No,
anyway,
no, you're right. You're right on. And then it's like people tend to forget history. I mean, the Warsaw ghettos. Warsaw was a town in Poland. It was a Jewish town, and it was basically the Gaza Strip of Poland. They built up a whole entire wall around the whole thing, and it was just all Jews. And they rose up and they tried to fight the Nazi Germany, and then they all got wiped off the face of the earth, and all of them got killed or they got sent to Auschwitz. And
so were they terrorists then?
Yeah,
since they rose up to fight
So now,
I guess they're a terrorist, right?
Nazi Germany, absolutely. They were just these annoying enclave people. So why the hell wasn't Warsaw looking like Dubai? And now.
Right, that's a great point. That's a great way of putting it.
And the same people, the Ashkenazi Jews that experienced that hell, are now saying the Palestinians can't get their shit together. Why the hell didn't you get Warsaw together? Just, it was basically the Gaza Strip. It's the exact same situation. Nazi Germany controlled what was going in and out of there. So people tend to forget, because the thing is, life is forever changing. History is ever changing. Global superpowers don't last forever. Countries that were once on top, the United Kingdom, the Britain Empire, huge, and now the Britain Empire is not as big as it used to be. The United States is currently the global power, and China's now, starting to be right there as well. So people only want to remember themselves when they're on the top, and then blame everybody else that's not on the top for their own failures. But history just continues to repeat itself. It's sad.
Or at least rhyme like a poem.
Yeah.
At the very least, you reminded me, you were talking about how differently they were treating you when they thought you were just a white American boy,
started flirting with me.
Suburbs.
They didn't give a shit. Like, it's
I had to say, so check this out. I got this funny story. So my best friend at the time, my Jewish best friend, he was a Zionist. He was a Sephardic Jew, Persian. His parents were his parents were from Tehran, from New Jersey. Him and I just somehow clicked and became best friends in class at Humor University. We wound up requesting to be dorm mates, so we became dorm mates on the Jerusalem campus, and we were traveling buddies. He was the guy that me and him, we would skip class and go to Tachana Merkazit, which is the central bus station in Jerusalem, and we would just take random trips to wherever. And we went to Jordan, Amman, to Jebel Musa. I believe is called.
Yeah.
Jebel Musa, and we went to Petra, Wadi Rum, and when we crossed the border, and that's a whole experience in itself. But long story short, one of the experiences we had when we were crossing over the border back from Jordan into Israel, he looks Arab.
Yeah.
He looks very Arab, like dark features. You wouldn't tell that he was, American, by by looking at him. So we were going into the guard, you know, you enter the guard shack or whatever, and when you're crossing the border and they check your passport. Well, there are two female Israeli soldiers who were doing all that, and you heard her. You know, he spoke fluent Hebrew.
Yeah.
I speak a little Hebrew. I can read and write a little Hebrew. It's very rusty. It's been a long time, but I can have a simple conversation in Hebrew. But he speaks fluent, and he understood it, but he never really spoke Hebrew right off the bat. So when we were walking in, she says on her radio, she goes, "Harashon." Now Rashon means the first one, and because he was in front of me, so she was talking about the first one. So because he was brown skin, so but he heard that, and we got in, and she's checking the passport, and he's from New Jersey, so of course the dude is very rude. I mean, he has that New Jersey vibe about him. So he was she was like I think I forgot what gesture he did, but she goes "Eze b'chutz," which means how rude, and she didn't think that he spoke Hebrew. And he goes "Maze b'chutz," blah, 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 started speaking Hebrew to her. She was like shocked. Oh. She was talking. Oh, guess what? She's talking to a Jew, not an Arab. All of a sudden, she's like, yeah. She looked like, you know. Now they're treating me nice. In fact, I was flirting with them. I was flirting with all the girls I came in contact with in Israel because I was 18, you know. So it was just funny to see that happen, and that constantly happened throughout me and his travels throughout the land. Like for example, we'd be on a bus in Jerusalem, and some old lady would be looking at him and just staring at him, like this, like mad dogging him the whole time. And then he goes, he got fed up with it. He goes like, as we were leaving the bus, he goes, "Miat," which means who are you? And then she goes, "Miat," like, you know, like who am I? Like it was just. But what's funny is he was a Zionist, and he was receiving all this racism and not understanding where it was coming from. And I'm like, dude, do you not get it now? Like, you're experiencing the same shit. You're getting a taste of what the Palestinians are getting. And like, it didn't click. He was like constantly, and that's the paradox often that Mizrahi Jews who are Zionists go through, is that they receive a lot of racism off the bat because people think that they might be Palestinian, and they're having to consolidate their Zionism with this racism that they're experiencing, and they're trying to,
which is insane because like 45-50% of Israel is Mizrahi Jews. So 45-50% of Israel is Mizrahi Jews, and then you have 20% are Arabs. So that means that you already have 70% of Israel is brown, and you have 30% Ashkenazi, and you're still getting all this racism. That's what it's so weird to me, and because I have, like, honestly, prior to October 7th, I never really. Like I've had Israeli friends before, which has been interesting because things, especially now that my platform's grown, things have been really interesting. People assume that I'm very like that I won't talk to an Israeli and whatever else, but it's interesting when I speak to them, especially the Mizrahi Jews, because I don't know, it's a weird feeling for me, and I try to explain this to other Palestinians, but they don't understand. I think it's because of the fact that they look so much like us, that to me it's such a mental thing. Like, how are you guys literally, because I'll see them make these videos of them like making their teeth look fucked up and giving themselves a unibrow and making fun of Arabs, and I'm like, dude, you don't even need to do that. You are Arab. You look Arab. You already got the unibrow. Yeah. Like, I don't know what you're trying to do. Yeah. So that's what it makes me. It's that, and it makes, I don't know. It makes me kind of sad because I'm like, you know, 70 years ago, before Israel was ever created, we never hated each other like this. And then Zionism came, and now you guys think that we're some non-human breed. It's so interesting, and it's sad.
It is. There's another. Another story to tell the dynamics of what you're kind of talking about, and this is it's a funny story. It's not going to sound funny when I tell you the headline, but okay. So I almost got beat within an inch of my life by a Palestinian in Haifa. Right? All right, that's the headline, but it's actually a funny story, and it's not what you think. So here's the story. Me and my friend Bobby, the Sephardic Jewish guy, we're in Haifa, and we're just touring, taking pictures, having a good time. We were staying at a hostel, an Israeli-owned hostel, and this is at the base. I don't know if you've seen pictures of Haifa, but the Baha'i Gardens. It leads down it goes down a hill, and then you have the main street that runs along the coast.
Yeah.
Okay, so right across that street, on the base of that hill that the Baha'i Gardens are at, there's some houses and some alleyways, and there's a hostel down there, down the alley. So me and him, we were out, and this, by the way, this is a significant part of my life. This was a huge moment in my life that changed me for the better, and also for it woke me up to a lot. We were in our pajamas smoking cigars, just trying to holler at the girls that night. And he grabbed it. He was a little tipsy. And we were heading back to the hostel, and we had to cut through some alleyways. So he gave me his credit cards because he gave me his he made me hold his camera case. So I put it in my cargo pocket, and I had to put my credit cards in the camera case. So keep that in mind. That'll come into play later. So I have to take a piss. We're walking. I'm like, dude. He's like, dude, just wait. The hostel's right down the alley. He's like, dude, I really got to piss. So I found this corner in the alley to take a piss. Took a leak, and then we continued on down that alley. As we're walking, he turns around and says, dude, there's a guy getting out of his truck. Dude, he's coming. And I thought he was joking with me or fucking with me. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's a guy coming right at us. Go. He just starts taking off running. And I'm like, where the hell are you going? And I start running after him. I didn't even look back because I'm just like trying to go where he goes. He just takes off running, and my credit cards are falling out of my pocket. So I turn a corner, go in this little corner in the alleyway, and I'm putting my credit cards back in my pocket and securing everything. And I see a 2x4. So I grab the 2x4 and I look around the corner, and I don't see Bobby. So that means he's safe somewhere. I just hear him gone, but I see this big shadow, that's further, behind the light. So I look around the corner, I see this big Arab dude, Palestinian, dude. And he's just, and I'm just like, must be a misunderstanding. I don't know. So I drop the 2x4 and I go up to him. I'm figuring I'm just going to talk to him. Before I even talk to him, whack. I freaking see stars. The dude starts beating me with this rock, and he just starts whacking me. And I don't know how I remained conscious, but something in me kept me on my feet, and I grabbed both of his arms. And I was a skinny little dude at the time. I was small compared to him, but somehow I guess the adrenaline kicked in, and I was able to hold this guy under control and ask him, hey, what's wrong? And so I pulled the rock out of his hand, cut my hand all up. My face is all bloody. And I'm looking at this guy, and I'm like, what's wrong? And then he starts headbutting me, which I didn't even know. It's the first time I've ever had that happen to me. I didn't even know people headbutt people in real life. I thought that was in the movies. Freaking just slamming me. I'm like, whoa, what? I'm seeing stars. I'm like I have a major concussion at this point. And I'm just like, all right, I give up. So he grabbed me by my shirt and kind of just like drags me. And I'm like, all right, take me wherever. And I'm just thinking in the back of my mind, what did I do? I was like, am I getting kidnapped? Because I'm still full of all that propaganda about Palestinians that I'm getting kidnapped by Hamas. I don't know what's happening. He takes me to this house that was right near the area where I was taking a piss. And he throws me on his porch. And his wife, now he doesn't speak any English at all. He's grabbing shit out of my pocket, grabs my phone. I'm like, go ahead. I think I'm getting robbed. I'm like, go ahead, take it. He takes my phone and calls the police. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? His wife comes out. Now his wife's wearing hijab, and she speaks a little English. And she's like, I'm like, what the hell did I do? What's going on? And like, she's like, you were robbing us. I'm like, wait, what? She's like, yeah, I know what you were doing. You were trying to rob his warehouse. I'm like, what warehouse? So it turns out where I took a piss was right near some like warehouse type of thing.
Oh.
And this guy was a truck driver, and she basically told me that we're getting robbed all the time. We can barely make a living because guys like you are coming in and robbing us. And I'm like, I'm an American. What are you talking about? Why would I'm a student at Hebrew University. Why would I come all the way from the United States just to rob you? So she didn't believe me. She's like, yeah, sure. I'm like, what? So that's what's happened to me. Now, meanwhile, Bobby, he makes it to the hostel. He tells him, my son, my friend is something's happened to him. There's a guy chasing us. So that's happening over there. So, and they called the police too. So both parties are calling the police on each other. They're calling the police on this guy. He's calling the police on me because he thinks I was robbing him. Now, I was like, because I was thinking that maybe he was mad because I took a piss near his house.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Thing where I disrespect. Yeah, that's what I thought too. But no, it had nothing to do with that. It's because, and I didn't even know there was a house there, but it was because they thought that I was robbing this guy. And apparently he was suffering financially because guys around my age Israeli teenagers and young adults would be breaking into his and stealing his stuff. And he had a family to support. So then I'm like, but they still didn't believe me. So here's a beautiful thing about Palestinians. Like I said, when you know one Palestinian who can vouch for you, you're good. Yeah. You're good. So I called up. I was like, all right, obviously I'm going to solve this right now. I call up my friend and he gets him on and I'm like, hey, bro, there's this guy who thinks that I was robbing him. I was just taking a piss. Like, can you explain it? And he's beating the shit out of me. Can you explain to him who I am? So I gave him the phone. And all I hear is screaming over the phone. The guy looked horrified. He's like, oh shit. And I even heard like the Quran got brought up. I heard that. And I'm like, whoa, what is he saying? And then he goes, the guy just, all I see is the expression on his face. Like he gets me up. He invites me in his house, takes me to the kitchen sink. And I'm like, he says, wash up my face. Now, I don't even know what my face looks like. I don't know how bad the damage is. I see all the blood come off, and off my ears. And I'll tell you, by the way, I didn't know what my friend told him over the phone until like a few months ago when I finally asked him, hey, what was that? What did you tell the guy over the phone? Yeah. Like 20 years later, I asked him what. So anyways, all right. So I'm in the kitchen washing the blood off my face. His wife is standing there pleading with me. Like, what would you do? Okay. We get robbed all the time. We had no idea, what would you think? Like, we are barely able to support ourselves. And these Israelis are constantly coming in and breaking into his stuff and stealing from them. And I know why she was pleading.
She was scared you were going to tell the police or something.
Exactly, dude. And like, I was mad. Don't get me wrong. I wanted to beat the shit out of that guy. I was angry at him. I even told her, I said, I was angry when I spoke back to her and he's in the kitchen. I'm like, listen, you tell him that. And at that time I was going through this, spiritual journey in myself where I was really trying to be Christian. Like I was going through this phase where I was reading the words of Jesus and I was really trying to follow it to the T. Yeah. I was dealing with all kinds of questions in my heart about, am I going to heaven? Am I going to hell? Like, will God accept me into heaven? I need to live by Jesus' word. So I told her, I said, listen, you tell your husband the only reason why I didn't hit back or fight back is because Jesus said to turn the other cheek, and she told him that. And she was just pleading though. She was deathly afraid that, because then I understood why, because if I would have gone into the police, they would have locked him up for life. Yeah. I mean, they would have jumped on the opportunity. Okay, so meanwhile, Bobby, he went to the hostel while all this was going on. He rounded up a posse of the people at the hostel, these Israelis. They surrounded the house. While I'm still washing up and talking to them, he sends me a text, hey, and then he goes out to the front porch to explain to them because they surrounded the house. And Bobby sends me a text, hey, the guy's saying you're inside. Can you confirm? And I walk out the house and I'm like, it's okay, everybody. It's fine. We worked it out. And I mean, these guys wanted blood and they're like, the Palestinian dude, as I walked down the steps of his porch, he looked at me and he shook my hand. Okay. He didn't speak English. So it was just kind of like all facial expressions at this point. Yeah. I shook his hand. And then I walked back with Bobby and that crew, and we went back to the hostel. Okay, so we get back to the hostel. Now they're all surrounding me and talking in my ear. They're all like, "Dude, you got to go to the police. This is not right." And like, it's not okay to shoot first and ask questions later, blah, blah. And you can just see, I started to realize that I saw the dynamics. That was an eye opener for me. Like, these guys they want this guy to go to prison, not because of what he did to me, but because he was Palestinian. Now, I told him, I said, listen, and this again, when I say that this moment was another key moment in my life, was because I grew up wanting to live because of my ancestors, right? Everybody has their ancestors and their philosophies that was passed down to them. Well, I come from cowboys, right? That's my ancestry. I come from cowboys, Quakers, and Amish. So that's my genealogy. And my grandpa comes from, Dakota cowboys, and you live by the cowboy code. Now, at that moment in my life at age 18, my first time being in the world alone, I was trying to live up to that code that was passed down to my ancestors. And the cowboy code is you shake somebody's hand. That's a contract. You don't break it. Mm-hmm. You keep to your word. These Israelis are all trying to convince me to report this guy and call him. And I told him, I said, look, no, I'm not calling the cops on this guy. It happened to me. So it's my choice. This is my decision. This didn't happen to you. This happened to me. And I'm the one that makes the final decision. I'm saying I'm not calling the cops on this guy because I didn't tell them this, but I knew in the back of my mind, this guy's going to prison for a long time, and it's going to fuck his family because his family doesn't have income at that point. They're screwed. So I'm like, look, this is my decision. And I knew the repercussions. Now, don't get me wrong. I still wanted to go back there and beat the shit out of that guy, man to man, because that's how you deal with it. That's how men handle it. They handle it man to man. I'm never the one to call the cops. I would never call the cops on anybody. Yeah. Because in my philosophy is, you got an issue with somebody, you handle them face to face. You don't get backup. So that moment, I learned so much in that moment because I learned the dynamics of the hatred that was towards Palestinians, that they'll use any opportunity to fuck over a Palestinian. And I also learned something about myself. It was my first time alone to finally live the cowboy code. And I felt really accomplished in that moment, because it was like the test. Like, are you going to live up to your ancestors? Are you going to keep the cowboy code? And I did. And to me, like, that was that point, and that was that fork in the road in my life where it's like I chose to go down the cowboy path in life. Right. And I felt like I was completing that part of my ancestry. And I also learned about the dynamics between the Palestinian and the Israelis. And and to this day, I could tell you exactly where that house is. I could go back to Haifa, because Haifa is a very simple layout of a city. Like, it's not hard. You got the Baha'i Gardens, you have the coast, you have the Dagon grain silo thing, and then you have the road that goes along the coast, and then you have his house in there somewhere, in that area. So I want to go back there someday and just talk to the guy. Hey, you remember me, motherfucker? And I just, but it's funny because the pictures we were looking at the pictures because Bobby had this really nice Nikon digital camera, that this Rebel T1 or whatever, and we were looking at the photos that day in the daytime where I'm smiling, and then me and Bobby went back out that night to take some more pictures and just hang out some more. Like, the night wasn't over. We got over it. My face is all fucked up and scratched up, but we're out having a good time again, and we're taking pictures, and you see the before and after. During the day, my face is fine. After, like, this side of my face is just totally fucked. Now, what's funny was when I went back to Jerusalem at Hebrew University, I met up with this girl that I was kind of in a relationship with, and she was a major Zionist Israeli chick, like super. She was of the fanatical type almost, that I'll talk about at some point. But she saw my face fucked up. Yeah. And she was like, she thought that I got in a fight with like an Israeli or something. She's like, oh shit. Oh my God. Oh, he really fucked you up. And I'm like, it was actually a Palestinian that did this. She's like, oh my God, are you okay? I'm like, what the fuck? Just a second ago, you were feeling all proud that it was an Israeli that might have done this to me. Yeah. But, and then, of course, now, of course, my Palestinian friends just fucked with me from that point on. I was like, hey, how does it feel to be beat by the guy my friend lead, who actually was the one that explained to him over the phone. He said, he's like, how does it feel to get beat by an Arab? I was like, you fucking asshole.
Oh yeah, so what did he tell him? What did your friend talk to him on the phone? What did he
Okay,
say?
Good question. So I asked him, this was only like a month ago, I finally asked him. I'm like, by the way, remember that thing that happened? He's like, of course I remember what happened. I'm like, what did you tell him? He says, here's what I told him. She says, first, in our culture, in Palestine, is Palestinian culture, if ever there's an issue, okay, a major dispute or issue, and you want to vouch for somebody, first thing you do is tell them your name and what village you're from and who your family is.
Yeah.
And then you say, based on that, I am vouching for this guy, right? It's kind of similar to like...
No, I know. Yeah, we do the exact. I know exactly what you're talking about because my family does that shit all the time. That's kind of what you do. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what he did. He says, my name is so-and-so, and I am vouching for him. I'm come from this village. This is my family. And I'm telling you that this guy is cool. He's an American student, blah, blah. And that right there was enough to stop this guy. And I'm just like, dude, Palestinians live on a whole nother code of honor and level that is unfathomable to anybody in the Western world. Like to have that type of, I don't know, to have that type of honor code, like people just don't understand what it's like to go into a Palestinian village, whether it be on the Israeli territory side or the West Bank side. It's this code of honor that they live by, and you cannot buy that shit with money. So anyways.
Yeah. No, all of it. It's definitely transformative because I can imagine it's kind of honestly kind of like a movie moment because you get to see the other, you get to see it from their perspective. You know, you're putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and seeing just how bad it is for them. It's pretty much that's their existence. It's just sad. And they know that they have the power to, like, you know, to mess with Palestinians, so they'll do that stuff. Like they'll purposely try to, yeah, it's sad. But makes me happy that you experienced Israel, and this is like, you know, this is what's kind of led from that. Do you feel like have you met a lot of other people who went on birthright trips or, you know, taken travels and stuff and noticed this? Do you think that this is common?
Well, like I said earlier, is that the group of American Jewish students who were on the same flight with me and were in the same Hebrew Ulpan program, which is like the Hebrew language program, they like I said, they went there as pro-Israel Zionist, and then they saw. Now they didn't have nearly the amount of experiences that I had. I was the only one in my entire group of students that ever had any of these interactions with Palestinians and going to the West Bank and traveling. I traveled more than any of them because they were, and that's why they did better with their grades than I did, because I shrugged off my classes. But so they were, you know, they were pretty good at keeping attendance in their classes, and that's why they did better in school than I did. But I was busy traveling and having fun. But they didn't, but even then, even with the little experience they had with Palestinians, even then they slowly gravitated away from Israeli culture. Like I noticed that the American Jews did not hang out with the Israelis at all, which was surprising because I would think that they went to Israel.
Yeah.
They traveled all the way to Israel. You would think that they would be hitting it up with the Israelis. The only interaction they really had with Israelis was when the American Jewish dudes would be getting an Israeli girlfriend, you know, to have a little summer girlfriend. But other than that, I noticed that the American Jews were having the same culture shock, and they were kind of like, this racism towards Arabs and Palestinians and Arabs. They call them Arabs, but like I don't really call them Israeli Arabs. They prefer to be called Palestinians with Israeli citizenship. That's the more accurate term, because they're not. I mean, they're Arab, but they're not. They're Palestinians. They're just they happen to be, you know, within the 67, you know, borders. And it's out of no fault of their own. It's just how the chips fell, you know, for them. And they, I noticed that a lot of them did do birthright. And there were some extremists, there were some Zionist extremists on the American side of the students, but most of them, I noticed that they did not click well with the Israelis. They didn't like it. It was bizarre to them. And it was interesting to watch that happen too.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of surprising.
Yeah, that
So
is.
and that's why this isn't a thing about Judah. This isn't a Jewish thing. This is not a Jewish issue. This is just a humanity issue. Like, these were American Jews, but even though that they were Jewish, they did not like how Israeli society had evolved or developed, or what they were, their status. They were abhorred by it, and just like I was, maybe not as much as me, because I had more contact with the Palestinian reality. And like we were talking about the West Bank, how the West Bank was kind of like that thing that really tipped me was, I'll tell you what, it was that moment where me and Bobby, we went to Jericho, and in Jericho we met a tour guide who was Palestinian, and he just a stranger just walked up to us and said, "Hey, you guys want a free tour of Jericho?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah!" And he was nice as hell. This guy, he was like 60s, maybe 50s, and he gave us a whole tour of Jericho and the West Bank, and he was so cool. And he was like, "How about you come to Hebron to come visit me and stay at my house and all that, and see my I think it was a bakery or a glass, I can't remember." Yeah. But he opened up to us, and he told us that he was in prison for 10 years for terrorism charges because he spray painted a resistance symbol on a building. And he was banned from Jerusalem. He wasn't allowed, out of the West Bank territories. And that's another long story about how when he took us to Hebron, he was showing us what the settlements were looking like, and how the settlers were strategically placed in buildings that looked down on the streets of Hebron, and they would throw their beer bottles, throw their trash down at the Palestinians, to the point where the Palestinians had to put a net above the street walkways to prevent beer bottles from just crashing down on a child's head.
Yeah.
And looking up at that net, I'm like, why the hell did and I immediately, you see the engineering of placing these settlers above the Palestinians in the West Bank, so that they're looking down at them.
Yeah.
So that they can throw their trash. It's specifically engineered that way.
Yes.
And when I saw that, I'm like, oh, this is sick. This is disgusting. Like, that was really an eye-opener for me. I'm like, not only, I mean, the fact that you would engineer the building and construction to create this hierarchy, this supremacy, is a disgusting idea. And I was just like, to the point where they have to put a freaking net over it so that a beer bottle doesn't crash on a little kid's head while they're just walking about their daily lives. And he was in that Al Jazeera documentary where she was showing how, like, these streets are no longer accessible to Palestinians who used to own shops on those streets. Yeah. Right. One of his shops used to be in that area that's now closed off and only accessible to Israelis. And so, it was just, and there was another situation that happened with that guy where we were having to cross into a certain area, but they wouldn't allow him because he didn't have a certain ID card. I forgot what the situation was. Like, his phone was dead, so he wasn't able to call, and I don't know what the deal was, but I felt guilty because he wasn't able to go with us. Mm-hmm. And he was so kind to us, and he was so hospitable to us. And the Israeli soldiers were giving this guy shit. Yeah. They were just harassing this guy, and I felt guilty for it because I felt like it's because I was with them, an American, and they didn't like the fact that a Palestinian from the West Bank was American, so they gave him grief for it. And that made me feel like shit because I'm like, oh, dude, this guy's suffering because of me. And I was just fucking angry, dude. I was so angry. I'm like, dude, you don't you're treating him like a freaking white person in 1940s South would be treating a black person. Like, that's how you're treating this guy. And I'm just like, this is sickening, man. Especially how nice he was to me. It just gave me the sweetest guy you could ever meet.
It's really sad. And actually, yeah, so that's the main road. That's the thing. Even in my family's village, the main roads now, my family has to take the back roads, and they have to be really so right now there's checkpoints leaving the village now on each side, but only settlers are allowed to take the main roads now. So Palestinians either just don't leave, or they have to go through the trees to get out. And that's the shit that pisses me off, is that my family has to take back roads and has to hide while the settlers take the main roads. That's so sick. And then you look up and you see a 16-year-old with an M16 literally physically above you that's and they're looking down at you, and so not just psychologically but physically they're above you. It's a really weird, like it's a very dehumanizing feeling, and they like that. They know that it
Yeah.
dehumanizes you, and it's like it turns them on.
Yep.
That's the most sick part about it.
They're jerking off to that shit. Yeah, it's disgusting, dude. And
Um,
it's like even if I had that power to do that to a
how would you
human
do
being,
it?
even if I had complete carte blanche, why would you do
Yeah.
that? Like, how do you feel like your soul is intact? Like, how do you feel like you have any part in any type of positive afterlife, knowing that that's how you're treating
I
another human
don't.
being? And the irony is the people that you're treating that way are more ancient Israelite than you are. That's the crazy irony behind it, you know?
Yeah, oh, it makes me so mad. It makes me so mad. So you can just like knowing that, and I get so mad because I'm mad at my. See, this is a thing, and I'm so glad. I'm so privileged to live in America, and I tell this to a lot of my friends, like my, just my white American friends, because I'm honestly probably like, I'm not even trying to toot my own horn. I'm just really fucking motivated. I'm so motivated in my life. I'm very driven, and a part of it is because I don't take for granted how much opportunity there is in this country. Dude, there's so much opportunity. I can do anything like in America. There's so much you can do in this country that my
Yeah.
family will never have the opportunity to do.
Yeah.
Starting companies, getting into tech. You can do anything from your computer. There's so
Yeah.
much opportunity for entrepreneurship. People you can meet, people you can connect with, lobbyist group. Like there's so much you can do. So, because I have that privilege, and because when I go to sleep, I know my family is still worried that a settler is going to come and kill them, I feel like I have to. It's like I'm doing a disservice to my family if I'm not maximizing on the amount of privilege that I have. So I mean, hey, if you're an
Yeah.
American and you're not Palestinian or whatever, just remember that there are billions of people that would love to have the amount of opportunities that you do. That's why I honestly feel like this country, it really is limitless. I guess that's maybe where some of my optimism comes from, but I really feel like you can do massive change with the amount of opportunity you have.
The first video I saw of you, that's exactly what I saw in you. I saw this Palestinian American guy who's using every inch of his opportunity to stand up for his people who are back home who don't have that. And you're using your platform, which is why, dude, I hope you blow up, dude. I hope you blow up so freaking big. I hope you have like 4 million followers by the. No, I'm swear to you. I hope that's a thing. I hope you become that shining light that shows the like you're going to give so many Palestinian youth so much hope when they hear like your story and what you're doing and just hearing your voice. It is therapeutic for them as well. Like psychologically Palestinian youth need to see more people like you out there. It's vital to the movement. It's vital to their hope for the future that they see you specifically out there doing your thing, standing up for them, starting these ventures. I cannot stress enough how important that is, which is why I've been so nervous about this particular episode, because I really wanted to foster putting you on a pedestal like that. It's been.
Too kind.
I mean, I want to do whatever I can as my part to put someone like whatever platform Colonial Outcast eventually has. I hope that this is one of those shining episodes that they will constantly be replayed and clipped and thrown out there, the different parts. I mean, we're on 3-hour mark,
shit, yeah.
and I hope that every bit of it. No, it's fine. What I'm saying is I hope every bit of this, I hope people dissect this episode, and I hope they pull clips from it, and I hope they post it, and I hope they throw it this way and that way so that it can really be an inspiration, because I see you as that shining light for the Palestinian youth. Not to say that there's not other people who are shining light for Palestinian youth. I know that there's plenty of people out there, Palestinians, who are doing this type of thing. But you in particular, you're the one I honed in on when I was, flipping through TikTok and shit, and just, and Instagram. And yeah, I mean, I do see you as an omen. As superstitious as that may seem, I do
appreciate
see that,
it. You're being really kind.
So
thanks, man.
no, I'm just being realistic. I'm not even trying to, you know, kiss ass. I call it how I see it, you know, and and there's dude, I could talk to you for freaking 3 more hours. I really could. I wanted to, before I forget, while just going back to the West Bank and the settler fanaticism, I want to play this. I'm pretty sure you recognize this clip, but we need to talk about it.
אין לנו תיעוד מצולם של הניסיונות האלה. כל ברבנו כאשר התבגרו אחרי חניכה שכזו. הסכינים בקבוק התבערה מעבר התבגרו אחרי חניכה שכזו. הסכינים בקבוק התבערה מעבר לכל, תמונת התינוק עלי דוואבשה שנרצח בפעולת נקם היא זוכה לטיפול מיוחד שכולל דקירות סכינים, ניסיונות להצית אותו אולי פעם שנייה.
So you want to give the audience a little background of what they were witnessing there?
Yeah, that baby was that was a Palestinian baby that was killed. I believe that Palestinian baby was burned to death, correct? I believe that Palestinian baby was burned to death. And what you're seeing is these radical settlers, they're celebrating the death of the Palestinian child with the minister Ben-Gvir. And he's dancing with them while they're holding a photo of this dead Palestinian child, like they're glorifying the fact that they were able to kill him. And that just goes to show how racist, dehumanizing the whole culture is.
No, it's pure sadism. Like, to celebrate the death
of a baby. It's
okay. A baby. Okay. Let's say you hate the Palestinians. Let's say you do want to dehumanize them because you think that they're animals, or you think that they're all terrorists. Okay. How far are you going to go with that? A child.
Yeah.
To celebrate the death of a child is okay. Like, I want to make a comparison here with the prison system. Yeah. Right? American prison system. Let's take a trip into an American prison. What do they do to people? What do prisoners, criminals, convicted felons, convicted prisoners, what do they do to people who harm children?
They beat the hell out of them. They have to put them in their own they have to put them in their own prison cell because they'll get killed by the rest of the prisoners. Yeah.
Right. At the very least. Okay, these are convicted felons in the American prison system who have that level of morality to know that you do not harm kids. Think about that. I don't think people realize that. There's the bar for the prison system, for the prison culture, who are in there for committing crimes or not. You know, in our prison system, a lot of them are probably innocent. But regardless, that's how much way lower in the pits of hell this ideology is and this culture is. It's below the prison system in the U.S.
Well, it's sick. The rabbi of Yitzhar, he wrote a book, and in the book, he says in the book that if a Gentile baby has a likelihood of harming a Jew, then it is permissible that the Gentile baby is killed. And this book got viral, and this is exactly what these settlers, they really believe that if Palestinians aren't human, that they're better than them genetically. They think they're genetically superior. They talk a lot about that. At least the rabbi of Yitzhar does. And then you see this, and they're glorifying the death of this baby because they think that the baby was Amalek from the Bible. They think that it was just Satan's child or whatever, and it's okay. So it's when I see that, it's we're not just the lack of humanity, but it makes you can't look at that and not. I get so angry, and I get so angry because I keep thinking that could have been my baby brother, or that could have been my cousin, and to know that I could have. I just imagine how much pain I would be in if it was somebody I knew, and then knowing that people are laughing and dancing because of that. and I hate to just fucking bring it up, but Jesus Christ, dude, you guys literally went through the damn Holocaust. You would come on. And I'm talking because I mean these settlers in the West Bank, the
Yeah.
majority of them are like Ashkenazi, and I just get how could you experience so much dehumanization and then write, and I've posted photos of this. They'll write gas the Arabs on homes in the West Bank, and they'll write Arabs to the gas chambers.
Mm.
That to me is what really mentally I can't grasp.
Mhm.
I just can't grasp it.
Yeah.
I'm so pissed off. It's like I have to transmute my anger a lot, but I would at least like to believe that I'm good enough that if one day when Palestinians do have, you know, self-determination and their own power, that I hope my own people would never do this to the people, to their oppressors, and repeat history.
They wouldn't. They wouldn't. Palestinians would never do that. Even if the roles were switched, and hypothetically overnight the Palestinians had the same amount of power that the Israelis had, knowing Palestinian culture, they would never treat the Israelis the way that they were treated by the Israelis. Why? Because it's the code that the Palestinians live by. They will give their lives to uphold that code. That code that goes back thousands of years, to break that code is to break being a Palestinian, which they will not do. And so I mean, I don't know, has Hamas ever done that? Has Hamas ever at a party celebrating a picture of a baby, an Israeli baby they killed? I'm trying to think. No, I don't think that's happened.
We're not even celebrating. I don't know one Palestinian in the West Bank that's over here like throwing parties. I really don't.
Yeah. And I've never, by the way, when I was amongst, I never heard Palestinians talk about the Jews in the dehumanizing manner that the Israelis would about the Palestinians. I never heard it. I mean, yeah, sure. You have that one guy who'll say that one guy that everybody knows is like the crazy one of the group, who might say an anti-Semitic remark, like he'll say Yahud, but it's more or less like a reactionary thing, like the Jews are doing this to us, not like they would never speak in this language of like, oh, the Jews aren't really human. They wouldn't talk about them like as if they were like this inferior animal. Exactly. It would be more or less like maybe a resentment of how they're being treated by the Jews, but it would never be like this looking down on them as if they're not a person. So, and you know, I mean, it's.
You were talking about connection to the land and how there's like a sense of sacred, and it reminded me to tell you. So, in Palestine and the West Bank, the way we view the year, it's different. They view the year based on the season, like the crop season. So the season of the olives. That's, you know, they'll go based off the season. And they also there's been a lot of videos of this. It takes olive trees they live for centuries. Olive trees, there are some species of olive trees that have been around since Jesus was walking on earth. So olive trees are sacred to Palestinians. Like you will not see a Palestinian uproot an olive tree. Like there's a level of what.
It's against Islam. In Islam, you're not allowed to cut down a tree.
And especially because those trees take so long to bear fruit for them to olive harvest. So the settlers know that we have this like affinity for the olive trees, especially in Budi and the Yitzhar settlers. They know that because they know that like my uncles, especially one of my elderly uncles, he has this tree in front of his house and he tends to it, and it's like he treats it like a baby. Especially with olives. So the settlers know that, so they'll purposely burn the trees, and not only burn the trees, they'll purposely like grab saws and they'll purposely like just destroy the hell out of them. And sometimes they like to do it in front of my family while they smile. Like, not just because they're hurting our land, but they like to, it's like they know that it means a lot to us. So because they know it means a lot to us, not even just because of the fact they want to destroy our harvest, but because they know that we have this affinity to these trees, they purposely like to see our reaction when they saw it down in front of us to like get off to our suffering.
one of the most heart-wrenching videos I saw was a Palestinian man who had an olive orchard that was passed down to him from generations, and in front of him, this settler took a chainsaw and cut them down right in front of him, and he was so devastated that he just hit the ground crying and apologizing to his ancestors, because the guilt that he felt like he was letting his ancestors down and disappointing them by allowing this gift that was passed down from generation, and to see this sadistic pleasure of this. I mean, why would you? Okay, even if you took somebody's like property, you're gonna cut down his prized olive trees in front of him just to get that pleasure and satisfaction of watching him be devastated. And he was crying, and he was just hugging the ground and saying, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, Dad." And I'm just like, dude, yeah,
it's just really, it's depressing. I don't know. I don't think injustice can't last forever. I think that Israel there are these radicals that, like Danielle Weiss, that chant from the river to the river. I think that the U.S. has woken, and once people know the truth, you can't walk back from that knowledge. The younger generation being this, knowing what they know about Israel now, even with a TikTok ban, does not matter. That's not just going to disappear. So I think that it's not going to go away. So I think that with that too, Israel relies on, its daddy, the USA, to do a lot of its BS. So I think justice will eventually prevail. I'm not exactly sure how. The whole two-state solution, I don't know how that's all going to play out. But what I do know is nothing like this can't last forever. It just can't.
It can't. You're absolutely right. It can't. And I think it's so ironic that the more that they try to squeeze the Palestinians, the more that the Palestinians are winning on the global scene. They're being devastated in the land, but the whole world is watching, and I just see Palestinians getting louder and louder and louder and more fervent. And so, it's interesting how Israel has monopolized all the avenues of logistics. I mean, Palestinians have all the odds against them on a logistical, mathematical level. They do, but yet the Palestinians are rising and shining even brighter. And I'm just like, oh, that to me is it's a miracle. It really is a miracle. And I am optimistic, not because of what I'm seeing. Like obviously what's happening in Gaza, there's no optimism there whatsoever. That's all hell. That's all hell. But I'm optimistic for how things will go in the future, because it's just, call me superstitious, it's just destiny, man. Like, it's just destiny. Like, I do believe in justice in the universe. I do believe it. At the end of the day, even if you're not a religious person, it's just okay, you're not religious. It's the way of nature. The universe just has its own way of ridding itself of evil eventually. And we've seen that, because you go back 200 years, okay, it was normal to have slaves in the United States. You go back 60 years, or you go back, not too long ago, like yesterday, it was okay to have segregation. But and it was, a lot of things were normal back in the day. In the times of Rome, it was normal to torture people and crucify them and put them in the lions and have gladiators fight to the death in the Colosseum. It was normal to rape. It was, a lot of things were normal, but you see how humanity is going down a path of righteousness and progress. And I don't know if it's just the way of the universe. It's the way of nature. And I think that what Israel in the whole Israeli system, I think, is going to be a thing of the past. Eventually, it's just how many more people have to sacrifice themselves with their bodies to get there. That's, but I think it's good that we do, as horrifying as this stuff is, and as horrifying is it to see these settlers and see what kind of people they are. I'm a big believer in staring in the face of evil until it flinches. I believe in staring evil in the face. Stare at it. Do not look away. Stare at it until it looks away. You know, make evil back down, but don't turn away. Don't turn away your face from evil. Look at it in the face and recognize it's there, and make it afraid of you. Don't be afraid of evil. Make evil afraid of you. That's my philosophy, you know? I agree with that. So it takes an emotional toll, you know, seeing all this bad stuff. It takes an emotional toll, which is why I always emphasize, do whatever it takes to heal and to keep your mind right, and keep to stay in that, to stay coherent with yourself. Don't let it destroy you mentally. So you have to take your breaks. You have to give yourself that mental healing space, but then get back at it, you know. But it's important to stare evil in the face. I've always had that philosophy, you know, never back down from it, you know. So, yeah, I mean, I know it's late for you. You're in the East Coast, bro. So you're like, what time is it over there?
I think it's like around, what is it, around 11:41. It's cool. Honestly, I stay up pretty late anyway.
Okay, yeah.
Questions left on there?
Yes. Yeah, same here. Yeah, let me get to them. Oh yeah, we were talking about the indigenous, how Palestinians, like the first impression you get, one of the first impressions you get when you're in Palestine and you're in the West Bank territories and the villages, the first thing that comes to mind is how indigenous they are. And you can tell how indigenous a group of people are by the fact that they work with the land, not against it. Like, you see the settlements stick out like a sore thumb. They're like, it's like watching it's like looking at a Home Depot project. It's very cookie cutter. It's very suburban. It looks like something you would see in the suburbs of New York. Whereas Palestinian villages, they blend with the land. You can just tell by the way that the streets are laid out, the way that they plant. It's all very natural. And it's the most obvious thing about Palestinians is they're of the indigenous way of life they live. Israelis, you look like, when I go to the West Bank, it's like I'm living back in the Bible days. It's like I expect to see, you know, like Mary walking down the street, you know, with a pot of water. That's what it feels like. You go to Tel Aviv, you ain't nobody, you know. You're just another face in a concrete jungle. Okay, yeah, it's modern. It's very modern, has nicely trimmed bushes, and it has nicely curated cement streets, but where's the soul? You know, where's that community spirit? You don't see that in Tel Aviv, you know. And don't get me wrong, Tel Aviv can be a fun place, you know, it's great to party, but you know, it's nowhere I'd raise my family. You know, I would totally, in a safe world without Israeli occupation, I would totally raise my family up in the West Bank. Hell yeah, that would be an amazing life.
No, I would love that. I actually, dude, I would love that so much. And what does make me sad, and I'm never gonna stop speaking up. Like I will never stop speaking up. It makes me sad that I'm never gonna go back. To see, well, who knows, maybe one day, but I'm never going to go back in these current circumstances because I know they like have my name blacklisted. Yeah. But it's yeah, you know, it's separate from just like how close we are to the olive trees when it comes to the indigeneity, even the rhetoric and the culture. Like, I actually picked this up when I went and visited my family. Somebody asks you how you're doing, and you want to say, I'm doing great. It's kind of like a funny slogan. You say, "Ana zay al-lawz," and it means I'm like an almond. That's what it exactly translates to. But it basically means like I'm wonderful. I'm doing amazing. And it's specifically a Palestinian like slogan in the West Bank that you'll hear. But there's so much, and it'll all come to me later. But there's so much rhetoric that uses the harvests and the land as part of the language. Like they really incorporate it. Like the year goes by the season and what's of harvest. It doesn't really go by the months as much. We really focus on the land, and I think that's what makes me so sad. is they have so much connection to the land, and the worst thing is that the Zionists and Israeli propaganda will try to just completely erase all of that and then call us invaders. It's such a slap in the face. So that's really, really upsetting. I mean, yeah, it's all really upsetting. The indigeneity thing, this is why I've been really big now on, specifically when I talk to Palestinians and Palestinian Americans. I am so big on making sure that our people know their roots and they know where they come from and they know their history, because it's the lack of knowledge that allows so much of this propaganda to continue to spread. And it wasn't until I had to educate myself that when somebody brings up a talking point, like, oh, you guys are just Arabs and you invaded during the 7th century. You're all from Saudi Arabia. It's talking points like that just aren't true. Well, if you don't know your history and you don't know your origins, then you're not going to be able to actually refute that. So I'm really big on knowing your history, knowing your origins, and plus, because when you do, you feel so much more connected to the cause. So it makes me sad when I speak up, and I never thought I'm honestly the last person that I would have ever expected to be so much of an advocate for the Palestinian cause, because when I was in high school and college, my sisters were actually both of my sisters were presidents of Students for Justice in Palestine. I was so far away from that stuff. I was so, just not because I was intentionally trying, I just had no interest. All of my friends, I just didn't really care, because I just didn't have any other Arab friends, never really cared, and it wasn't until after. But having that connection, I feel like, and I think anybody, I mean, you were talking about your connection to your ancestry and, what do you call it? Cowboy code, is that what the cowboy code? Yeah. It doesn't matter, even though our ancestries are so different. I'm sure that you can also sense a feeling of, you feel rooted when you know where you're from and you're sticking with your values. And it doesn't matter what your ancestry is. There's a sense that you're in alignment with yourself when you're connected to your roots. Did you feel that with your origins and kind of sticking to that? You were mentioning how.
Yeah, so my grandfather on my dad's side, he was from Pennsylvania, and he was from that Amish background, Amish and Quaker, half Amish, part of his family was Amish, part Quaker. So the Amish are very uncompromising, as you know, right, when it comes to cultural influence. A lot of people don't know this, but the reason why the Amish live in their own closed off communities was because of their protest against slavery. They did not, it's not well known, but see, at the time of slavery, it was strictly against their interpretation of the Bible. They thought that slavery was a sin. To hold a human being as property goes against everything that the Bible taught. Now, they knew that they would not be able to win against the slavers. They knew that they were outnumbered and outgunned. So they said, okay, well, we do not want to be associated with all of the world and all of society because they're okay with slavery. So they decided to close themselves off from the world and say, you know what? Basically, they said, fuck the world. We're going to be our own community and away from that sin. So my grandfather he didn't grow up Amish, but he grew up in that culture. So when he moved to Richmond, Virginia, as you know, this is post-Civil War Richmond, Virginia, which was like a hodgepodge of Union aristocracy and Confederate aristocracy. So, and then you have black people moving into Richmond. That created this powder keg of racial tension, right? So when he moved to Richmond to build his home, my grandfather, he built the first house in his neighborhood brick by brick, and there was a church in that neighborhood that was built. And he was a part of that church, was very much an active member of the church, and the Ku Klux Klan was trying to infiltrate that church. And basically, long story short, he went to war with the Klan. He he was noticing that they were trying to infiltrate and trying to spread this racism in the church and trying to get all the white people to move out into the suburbs away from the black people because black people were moving in. And he raised my father. He was a very his interpretation of the Bible was that he used to use this superstitious notion to my dad, saying that if you're racist, God is going to curse you with leprosy. Mm-hmm. Right? That's what he taught my dad, because he believed that that's just one of the things he taught. He said that if you're a racist, God's going to curse you with leprosy. So he was very uncompromising with his affinity of the Bible and his adherence to the Bible. So that part of my grandpa was very inspiring to me as a child. Because he was so countercultural. Because in Richmond, Virginia, at that time, it was completely acceptable to be racist towards black people. It was considered completely normal. So for him to really go that countercultural to it because of his Amish influence and his Quaker influence was very inspiring to me. You know, now the cowboy code, that comes from my mom's side. Her dad was from Dakota Cowboys. He had a farm. So, you know, I grew up visiting the farm all the time, and my mom grew up on the farm. So he lived by that code of honor in the sense of when you shake somebody's hand, that's a contract, right? So you hold to that code, you hold to the values and of being with the definition of being a man. You have to earn your right to be called a man. And that includes protecting those who can't protect themselves, to always standing up for those who are oppressed, and to always protecting those who are weaker than you, right? There are rules. And when you shake somebody's hand, that's a contract. So now that's a high bar to keep for me as a man living in the modern era, where breaking your oath is very normal and it's very acceptable. And so I just wanted to live up to those standards. And again, that moment where in Haifa was a true test of that moment. And I came out of it. And I'm taking that completely out of the context of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict or any of that stuff going on. I'm just talking about that moment for me as a man to hold to that handshake that I gave that Palestinian, to not, I felt like, okay, I'm heading down that path. Okay. Step one complete. I'm good. So it was a huge crux in the road for me. And I always remember that moment, you know? And so when I say that Palestine shaped who I was and who I became, that's what it did. And so like I said, like I tell people this, I'm not pro-Palestinian because I'm a good guy or because I'm an activist or because I could just go stand up but no, I'm not a good guy. I have to be honest about what Palestinians did to create, like, their influence on me of who I became, you know, and it was completely unexpected. I wasn't, what if they assigned me to a different dorm floor? Right? What if they assigned me to a dorm floor full of Israelis and a bunch of Zionists, and I continued down a confirmation bias road of Zionism? Who knows where I would be? But it's just fate. It's just fate, you know. Destiny has its pathways for each and one of us, and just happened to go down that path.
Yeah, no, I can definitely agree with that. I was actually kind of unrelated, but I was actually going to become a plastic surgeon. I was dead set. That's why I was actually at Stanford. I was doing plastic surgery research, and I spent my whole life doing plastics. Like, if there was anybody that was going to go into plastics, I was going to become a plastic surgeon. I was in like every OR. If you search up my name on Google, well, now you'll see all my TikToks and stuff. But if you scroll down far enough, you'll see a ton of plastic surgery publications I'm in. And I was pretty set on it, and I dropped out of med school halfway through med school to start my company, and I was on a run, and I was like, this was like a couple years ago. Whenever I tell people this story, they think I've lost my marbles, but I was on a run, and I was so depressed. It was like you know, a year-long depression that was just sticking with me. And on paper, I was living in DC at the time. I was doing at George Washington University. I'd fly to Stanford for their research. And I was depressed because I felt like I had most of everything I could have wanted in life. I was at a good school. And I just kept thinking, damn, is this my life? Like I'm just gonna be, doing boob jobs for the rest of my life, and which is fine. There's nothing. Hey, don't get me wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
kind of like how everybody feels like they're trying to uphold their own ancestral, just trying to stick to their own values that they think is important to them. I was like, well, is this really it for me? Like, cool, I'm gonna be rich and I'll be a good plastic surgeon and then I die and then that's gonna be it. Um, and I was so unhappy. So I was on a run and I was just like bawling my eyes out on this run a couple of years ago. I remember it was like a full moon. I was in DuPont Circle in DC. And I'm just like kind of crying to the world, like, what the hell do I do? How the hell do I get out of this? And I swear to God, it hit me like a flash of lightning. And it was just like bam, bam, bam. And it was these three consecutive thoughts. And it was just like, drop out of medical school, start a multi-million dollar company and have a public platform and change the world. I know I sound crazy, but I got these three thoughts like lightning and it was so vivid. I could see it all. Like I saw the vision. This is why I'm so big on visioning. I like anybody I talk to, I talk a lot about how important it is to make sure you have a vision for your life. And the next day I dropped out of med school. I was actually supposed to present at one of the biggest plastic surgery conference in America, the American Association of Plastic Surgeons, and it was in Chicago. And my research got accepted to do a podium presentation, and I called the plastic surgeon that I was working with for 7 years, and I told him, I was like, dude, I quit. And my parents obviously went crazy. They thought I lost my mind, but I'm so damn glad I did. And that's kind of what opened the door for me to initially, I was just started kind of talking about motivation and stuff, but then this Palestine topic became so big. And every single day, I'm so glad that I didn't listen to anybody and I just stuck with my gut and dropped out of med school because I feel like my life is going to be a million times bigger than it ever could have been because I stuck with my gut and now I'm living a life in alignment with my values. It's a lot better than
That's awesome.
giving boob
I love
jobs.
that.
I don't know.
Dude, that's awesome, bro. I love hearing that. And it's not easy, dude. I cannot imagine. Okay, how Palestinian parents would react to their kid dropping out of med school. Oh, dude, I know Palestinian parents enough to know that, yeah, how they would react if their child dropped out of med school. So that must have not been easy at all.
Mom. She's like, what the hell are you going to do? And I'm over here telling her I'm going to change the world. She's like, you fucking lost it. She's...
That is so typical of Palestinian parents, bro. I get it. That's awesome, though. That took balls, dude. That took some major.
Yeah, I'm
balls.
glad I did it. I think it's a little bit of just like balls, and then also just kind of being a risk taker. I guess I'm really really glad I did it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and now it's amazing because as an entrepreneur, I could not be saying half the shit I'm saying online if I worked for somebody.
Definitely.
Even in med school, so they would have tried to go after me in med school at 100%. They would have tried to call my school or whatever. And they can't do that right now, and I love that because I know people are searching up my name, people are trying, but I think that's been really nice. I have a friend who is actually a pretty successful growing actor, and this dude is he blonde hair, blue eyes, and his name is very American, so nobody knows that he's half Palestinian. He's in Hollywood. He lives in LA. He's in Hollywood, and he's been on a few pretty big films now. And he has a large following, and I talk with him all the time, and he can't see. I don't want to say he can't because we do see people like Melissa Barrera and a lot of people speaking out, but he's just kind of starting his career, and he's talking about how he was telling me he's like I can't. It's like run by Zionists. My career would be over when I'm just getting started. So I think for me, making sure that my mindset is getting my people to the top so that way there's less of those situations happening, because I don't like that there's so much power that the Zionists have to basically shut down the Palestinian narrative. And a big part of my whole plan is just trying to get more of our people up at the top so that way somebody can speak up about Palestine and not have to worry about losing their career. And that's in every industry. every single industry. That's why actually I'm really happy I saw Lana Hadid. They recently created Watermelon Pictures. I didn't look too much into it, but I'm happy to see that like even in the film industry now, I think that the best thing Palestinians can do, Palestinians and their allies can do, and I've been really kind of advocating on this a lot, is there needs to be more of a presence in the media and entertainment industry. There has to be, and it has to happen very quickly.
That's something that, you know, it's funny because I since starting in 2017, I tried to launch a movie venture. That's kind of how I got into. I tried to get into filmmaking because I started off. I'm in the medical field, but as a side thing, I was trying to pursue acting. Right, so I went to I took acting classes, and I was an extra in a lot of films and movies and stuff, big films and movies. I was just an extra, and I tried to launch a movie project. I was trying to film a fictional film about child sex trafficking. Right, it was a vigilante neo-Western, you know, shoot 'em up type of movie. I dumped probably about 70 grand of my money into this movie, and spent 4 years making it. Had a whole film crew and actors, and got a lot of footage, probably like 23 raw hours of quality footage. Never finished the movie though, because I was doing it from paycheck to paycheck, just filming this movie. We got a kick-ass trailer out of it though. I mean, but it was called Black Girl Down. It was about a black girl who gets kidnapped into child trafficking, and the police don't want to look for her because we have a racist system and they don't care about black children who are kidnapped into child trafficking. So the whole thing was like a Tarantino style movie. And I never finished it though, because kind of like my personal life was starting to fall apart because I was having a full-time job, just had a kid, and then, you know, and I was filming up in the desert, you know, this very ambitious film project. Never finished it. And I was trying to figure out a way to get some type of support in Hollywood to try to, you know, but looking back on it, the movie never got finished. It's still shelved right now, but I'm thinking about it. I'm like, okay, what if I would have finished the film and I would have say it was successful when I was in Hollywood? Well, just like you said, how would I be here today on the pro-Palestinian movement side? So in some ways, I'm really thankful I never finished the movie, because okay, then I would be locked into, let's say I got into Hollywood that way and I was an actor now, and I'm a director, dude, I wouldn't be able to say shit. I would be shut down. They would come after me. So like you said, they have tried to control all the gates, you know, of these things. But I think there's only so much control. They can only squeeze so tightly. And then the things start to, like with Princess Leia, what she say to Moff Tarkin in Star Wars is like, the more you tighten your fist, the more star systems will slip through your fingers. Talking about the Empire's control. Yeah, it's talking about the Empire's control of the galaxy. Well, the concept is that they're trying they are trying so hard to maintain this narrative, using all kinds of intimidation, firing people, ruining people's careers, threatening people, slandering people, libel, all that stuff. They're throwing all the weapons at the pro-Pali movement, and yet the pro-Pali movement is getting bigger and bigger to the point where now the whole world is pro-Palestinian, and now they're an extreme minority, and I predict in not too long it's going to be considered taboo to be pro-Israeli. I think it's going to be to the point where if you start speaking like you're pro-Israeli, you're going to be treated like a pariah, like, ooh, yeah, don't say that, don't talk about being pro-Israeli, it's kind of taboo around here, it's a little politically incorrect and sensitive, and we're just that's how I think is going to happen in a couple years.
I think that when something happens that the right, the conservative Republicans, something happens, and I've been starting to see it, that they start getting turned off, or they start feeling ostracized by Israel, or they're feeling choked by Israel's influence in America. I think when it happens to the right, that's when things are going to really start to change, and we're beginning to see that. I mean, I never thought that I was. Yeah,
Tucker
exactly.
Carlson.
Let's say that, and Candace Owens.
Like that.
What?
big nuclear bomb that just went off when Tucker
talked
Carlson.
about the Christians getting spit on. Is that what you were referring to?
Who's that? Yeah, exactly. Who's that girl? That influencer? I am Blakely. She's awesome. I love that woman. She's a pro-Palestinian in New York City. She's even does country music. She's I'm gonna bring up a picture. This girl right here.
Oh yeah, I do know. I've seen her videos before.
Yeah, she's so awesome, and she made a whole video about the Tucker Carlson interview with the priest from Bethlehem, and she was saying how that, regardless of how you feel about Tucker Carlson, whether you're a fan or not, it's irregardless. The point of the matter is that he pierced the conservative bubble, because the way that they've designed our algorithm in our society is that the algorithms online and in the media are designed to keep us in bubbles. So you got the conservative right over here. Yeah, you become more radical and they keep that isolated, and you got the bubble over here, you got the bubble over here, and they do not intersect. That's how they've engineered the algorithm. But when Tucker Carlson did that, guess what happened? He just pierced the conservative bubble with the reality that, and it's really fucking crazy to think that the way to convince conservative right to care about Palestinians is only to point out the fact that Christians are among Palestinians getting persecuted. So it just goes to show how fucking inhumane the conservative right is, because they don't give a shit if the Muslims are suffering. And the Christians are suffering. Oh, we got a problem here, guys. It's like,
no, it is, but I've actually been thinking about this a lot, because I started telling Palestinians, and maybe I'm a little bit crazy, but I was just like, guys, you need to start finding every footage you can of a conservative Christian Republican shitting on Israel, and just blast that, or just talking about how they've been negatively affected, or how they're sick of Israel's influence in America, and blast that with hashtags US Army, US Navy, US whatever, and don't even talk about Palestine.
Ooh,
and just get
smart.
into those circles.
Smart.
I think that if we had, and this is why I brought up, and I got some hate for, talking about the Candace Owens thing, which to me, I don't really mind. I mean, everybody has their opinions, but what I loved about the Candace Owens and the Tucker Carlson talk about Israel is that you're hearing people say it not because they're pro-Palestinian, but because they're pro-American and they're pro-Christian. And I think that you have to, people, what I try to tell people on the pro-Palestinian side that are trying to push the narrative is you have to also have a little bit of strategy here.
Yeah. I mean, they have a strategy. Why can't we have a strategy? Like, it's not like it's the worst thing in the world to just try to appeal to people's tribalistic side. Okay, you're a tribalist. You only care about Christians. All right. Here's what's happening to Christians by the Israelis at the hands of the Israelis.
Like, you're not gonna a purple-haired Starbucks barista that's yelling "Free Palestine" is not going to convince a cowboy that it matters. You know what I mean? If anything, he's like, what the hell is this girl? She needs some Jesus. Get those piercings out of your nose. That's probably...
No, but you know what? You know what a cowboy will care about? Let's talk about the libertarians for a minute, okay? All right. Libertarians, I'm a libertarian. What do we care about? We care about, state oppression, the state violating our rights of privacy, our rights of free business, of free travel, all that good stuff. So we're about freedom, right? Well, what is the one country that literally makes an entire industry out of supplying governments the ability and the technology to spy on its citizens, to violate their rights of privacy, violate their rights and freedoms? It's freaking Israel. Israel, okay, conservatives, what is one of their main boogeymen they talk about? The CCP, right? The Chinese Communist Party. Okay. Why? What about the Chinese Communist Party is one of the most horrifying things? Their surveillance technologies, how they tried to invade all of Chinese society's privacy and track them using facial recognition. Who's supplying the Chinese, the CCP, with that technology? It's freaking Israel. Israel is supplying the CCP with that technology. Okay, so if you're paranoid about the CCP controlling and influencing us, then why do you have nothing to say about the fact that Israel is the one supplying the CCP with that technology? So even from a conservative right perspective, which is all about, the sovereignty of American and America first. Okay, well, Israel is totally shitting on that, of America being first, even in that narrative. So why wouldn't you take issue with that? So like you said, if we play on that strategy, conservatives will eventually wake up and be like, hey, wait a minute. Israel is actually acting with other countries that are known for violating American sovereignty, and they're supplying them with the technology. So why wouldn't you take issue with that? So I think this is just a matter of time before that narrative pierces the conservative bubble and it explodes. And then all of a sudden conservatives are going to be like, holy shit.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen. I think that honestly, and I really do, well, I mean, I think that a lot of people can never imagine a Palestine, like a free Palestine, being an ally to America. But honestly, I see something completely different. I think it's 100% possible. And I also think that Israel's influence with the U.S. is going to really hurt the U.S. long term. I mean, we lost the whole global South, all of it. It's all gone. When I said like global South, Brazil, all the African nations supporting the United States are standing with, it's all gone. China has really swayed public opinion in the global South. I've been talking a lot about China recently on my social media because I'm really interested in just geopolitics and just I want to know everything about how the world works. And I've been really interested in China's been playing the long game, and they've been buying so much infrastructure in Africa. They have spent billions of dollars in Africa, and the U.S. is not doing jack shit, and we're just sitting on our ass. And when it comes to Israel-Palestine, Israel is basically isolating ourselves. The more we're basically being hypocritical at the United Nations, and the more that we unequivocally stand with Israel, even when the whole world is telling us that Israel is doing horrible things and the United States vetoes everything, it makes us look bad, and it's not going to be good for the United States long term when we lose our diplomatic ties with these countries. And I don't think people are taking that into consideration, while China over here is becoming buddy-buddy with all of these countries that right now hate us because we are vetoing everything at the United Nations when it comes to Israel. That can't be good long term. That really can't be good.
No, it's not. It's like Israel is like that, stepchild that keeps like getting out of line, and America keeps supplying him money, but they're running up the credit card bill way too high, and I think Daddy's gonna be like, this kid is making me look bad in the neighborhood to the point where I can't even go outside anymore. So I think it's just a matter of time before they see Israel as a liability, and even if they don't see Israel as a liability, the simple fact of the matter is that the citizens of the United States are just going to be like gradually turning against it, where it's like, okay, it's another one of those things that the American government is doing against the will of the people, And so I think, like I said, I think that whatever victory the pro-Palestinian movement has, it's going to be very, very, very organic. It's not going to be politically necessarily. It's not going to be through the system. It's not going to be institutional. I think that it's just going to happen very organically. And it's going to be and the U.S. government is going to do everything it can to fight against the outcome. But I think the outcome is just inevitable. This conversation, honestly, is definitely lifted my spirits, though, even more so. It has. These conversations need to be had. And I hope, dude, I want to have you, I want to have more of these conversations if you're down in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I like that.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, we're on the, almost on the 4-hour mark, and I'm not ashamed at all about that.
Oh, damn. Yeah, we are. Time's flown by. No, I've been enjoying it.
Me too, man. I love this. This is probably one of my favorite episodes. I want the audience to definitely support you, Wally. wherever this any of this content reaches in the far corners of the internet, I hope that they go to your page and go to your outlets and they support you in everything you're doing. It is so vital to support people like you, because it starts like this. I mean, the victories start in these enclaves of the creativity that you have brought, these ambitions, young Palestinians who have ambitions. That is one of the biggest ways, the biggest weapons of defeating this imperialism and this oppression that not only is directed towards the Palestinians, but we're all victims of it in some type of way. Definitely not to the extent of Palestinians, but we're all victims of it. And I see people like you as being the sharpest weapons against it, believe it or not, you know? So, it's been an honor, Wally. It really has, talking to you, brother.
Likewise.
You know, yeah. Can we do this again?
Yeah, I'd love that. Honestly.
Hell yeah! And I want to work. I want to do whatever I can to work with you on whatever ambitions, to be as supportive as I can. You know. So, yeah, brother. Well, I guess we'll sign off. This is probably going to be a two-parter. Probably split this off into part 1 and part 2. So. Guys, go to Wally's page. It's going to be posted in the links on this episode, and show him support and spread. Take his clips, download them, spread them out throughout the internet, and give this guy your hand in whatever way possible. And any other young Palestinians who have ambitions, especially if they're innovative and creative. Creativity is such a powerful weapon in this whole conflict,
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, Wally, and do you want to say anything inspiring to the audience? Any words you can give especially to young people?
I'd say that whether it's the Palestinian cause or any sort of change that you want to make in your life, the importance of having a vision and really believing and seeing what you're trying to achieve. So instead of just saying that you are trying to achieve a goal, actually closing your eyes and every single day sit on what that would look like and prove that you believe it by acting on it. I think that's the key, that if you really say you believe something, then act on your belief system and anything is possible. I 100% fervently believe that anybody can change the world. You just need to take one step forward. So I just say, just hold on to the belief and act on that belief system.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're a badass, bro. Honestly.
Likewise.
Very good. Appreciate you, man. All right, brother. Well, we'll end this recording. Guys, thanks for watching. If you made it all the way through the 4 hours, I hope you did. It was, I think it's worth it, So, all right, guys, family, free Palestine all the way.